What time is it?
It's Valentimes.
What time is it?
It's Valentimes.
What time is it?
It's Valentimes.
That's right. There's love and fear in the air.
Ooh, chocolates abound, me boys. Flowers are raining from the sky. Cupid is going around shooting up people. It's a beautiful day.
But the chocolates are filled with blood.
No, blood chocolates.
And
my
the flowers
favorite.
and the flowers are filled with anthrax.
And bees.
And
Anthrax
bees. And
Oh.
Cupid has a AK instead of a bow.
Man, this Valentine's Day in 2018, things are getting real crazy.
Ultra Extreme Edition.
This
That's
is love
right.
in Trump's America, baby. This is what we got.
This is the No Love Deep Web episode of the Pod People.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
everybody.
Valentimes. I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I'm joined as always by Ben Sheets.
I'm Ben Sheets, and I'm snacking on these delicious candy hearts. I got one that said, I'll fuck anything that moves.
And also Eugene Lundeen.
I am also eating candy hearts, but yours look weird, Ben. I think that it looked like you wrote on those. It's clearly ink on those candy hearts you got over there.
Custom, special editions.
Did you send those to yourself though?
I just tried one of Ben's hearts, and these are made out of chalk.
Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on. Oh,
Look,
you're
look,
right.
money's tight. Okay, guys.
Ben, you didn't tell us. We would have got you candy.
Is it? Were you eating chalk because your stomach's upset from all the drinking we did during the Super Bowl?
Oh yeah, still upset from
it's
the
a
2
Tums
weeks
festival.
in between.
Well, I mean, we know we're a little early on this Valentine's special because that's related to some of our news, since this is basically the Cloverfield show at this point.
Yeah, we've done more than enough mentioning.
Hey,
hot
now that
mentions.
it's out,
Yeah,
we don't have to talk about it until the new one comes out yet again.
So, yeah, at the time of this recording, the Super Bowl was last night. The Eagles won, and Tom Brady had to sadly go back to making out with his son. But
Oh, that's
what
a
a-
hot claim.
Just
Come over
kissing
here.
his son on the mouth.
just kissing his son on the mouth. It is Valentine's.
Lots of tongue.
It is Valentine's after all.
Love is in the air.
Love is in the air. During the Super Bowl, they released a trailer for the new Cloverfield movie called The Cloverfield Paradox. So much for the God Particle and Cloverfield Station. And then they also just released the movie on Netflix after the game was over, even though in the trailer they had a release date for like mid-April.
It's to disorient the viewers, so you confuse them into watching the movie and enjoying it.
Exactly. I mean, it was originally scheduled for 420, which
Right, but
That was
Yes,
funny.
that's right.
But the trailer last night said that it was scheduled for 4/19, April 19th. But then they just released it last night anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess go watch the Cloverfield Paradox on Netflix. We will at some point.
The future is not very bright for Cloverfield
Yeah,
Paradox,
I
which
mean-
is like the worst name they could have chosen out of they should have called it the God Station or something instead of choosing those.
The God's
it's really the
Paradox.
life of Pablo of movie titles.
Yes.
But you know they got to squeeze the Cloverfield name in there.
yeah. So help me God particle.
I saw a few days ago that there's supposed to be a fourth Cloverfield movie coming out in October of this year. So this is the year of the Cloverfield, I guess.
Didn't you say it was like set in World War II?
Yes,
as
it's
well?
set, it's set during World War II. Apparently, it'll be our good boys fighting some. God, I hope it's not Nazi zombies, but I think it's probably going to be
Nazi
zombies.
aliens, okay? The true axis of evil.
They're saying that their intention for the Cloverfield franchise is to create something along the lines of the Twilight Zone, where the movies don't actually relate directly to one another. It's like a shared universe kind of thing, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I certainly appreciate that more than just saying we're gonna come out with the same story every
Right,
single
but-
time.
but-
it doesn't seem like from that point on, they really thought of trying to do anything
Yeah,
creative.
I mean, I'm kind of glad they're not doing direct sequels of more found footage.
Not all about T.J. Miller survived the first
Yes,
movie.
I agree with you on all of that, but my thing is, if they're not really related to each other in any way other than that, like, why keep calling them Cloverfield something except to just create a marketable brand?
Dollar signs, exactly.
That's all it
the
is.
only thing it is. On Twitter, there was someone I follow was like, if Cloverfield drops tonight, I will shit in my pants. I will pull down my pants and shit into them. And literally the next tweet after that is Netflix is dropping Cloverfield Paradox right after the game.
Did he shit into his pants?
I hope so. I didn't see them follow through.
That
Pixar,
boy
it didn't
better.
happen.
He better have soiled his trousers. He delivered a promise to the internet. Now he's
Who
gotta pay
lies
out.
on the internet?
Yeah, the internet is full of very good, honest people, like Piers Morgan.
Oh man, that ass eating picture.
The ass eating.
That is the greatest self-own of all time.
That dude is like a king at owning himself on the internet.
Piers Morgan got really offended that the BBC put up a picture of Piers Morgan eating Trump's ass.
And he tweeted the picture
So
himself.
he tweeted it out because he was so offended by it to all his followers and all of the internet.
And of course, now it's a meme.
Yeah.
So wait, the BBC sent out a picture of him eating Trump's ass.
Yeah.
And then why did the
And then he
BBC do
tweeted
that?
it. with some outrage, but let's not get too far off topic.
Yeah.
That's a horror movie. In
That's-
its own.
yeah, that's a horror-
Something we'll see that by the end of.
That's
end
a
of the
horror
year.
movie in and of itself.
That's a Black
All right,
Mirror episode. I think.
Yeah, what other news do you have for us, Ben?
Let's look at our guesses first for God Particle Cloverfield Paradox. Obviously, we can't do box office. It's a Netflix movie. We do have Rotten Tomatoes score guesses. Matisse, you said 48% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Eugene, you said 28, and I said 68. It's still very early, so we only have 40 reviews. The score right now on Rotten Tomatoes is a whopping 19%.
I was a naive, hopeful little boy.
Right, I had my hopes up after 10 Cloverfield.
After 10
Lane,
Cloverfield
man.
Lane, I mean, we should have known that it wasn't going to be good when they did not attach Dan Trachtenberg to it.
You know what? I'm still gonna give it a shot.
Yeah,
you know?
no, we're gonna reserve our judgments. We're gonna reserve our judgments for the moment.
But
So-
yeah, during the Super Bowl, we got some other trailers. Trailer for a new Hulu show called Castle Rock. It seems like it's trying to link all of the Stephen King movie franchises together.
Which is crazy to me, I guess. Stephen King and all of his genius. There's a lot of things that tie in between his stories.
Oh yes, he does it really well. I'm not gonna. dunk
I'm
on Dan.
worried the show is going to be way too fan servicey. When they mentioned Shawshank in the trailer, I kind of cringed.
Oh,
not gonna
wow.
lie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It could be good. It seems to have some decent people attached to it.
Is that the one that Mike Flanagan is doing?
No,
Or
no,
he's
no,
not on that.
No. His next film is supposed to be an adaptation of Doctor Sleep, the
Oh, no way.
sequel to The
Oh.
Shining.
Okay. Shit.
Which I read earlier in 2017 and really, really enjoyed. So I'm excited about a Mike Flanagan Doctor Sleep. I think he'll do it really well.
At least it's not Gerald's Game 2.
Right. We probably have to wait a couple of years, but we'll see how that turns out in the long run.
All right,
But
yeah,
let's talk about some of the other trailers.
Yeah, so we got a trailer for A Quiet Place.
The new horror film by everyone's favorite office pretty boy, John Krasinski. I feel like he's probably trying to get some footing in his career now that, I mean, The Office has been done for 5 years or something.
Thank God.
now. Yeah. He's made a couple other movies that just haven't hit, but
He was in that Michael Bay Benghazi movie,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yes.
13 hours.
I didn't
Right.
see that, but it looked bad.
No, but he is acting and directing in this one. His wife, Emily Blunt, stars in the film as well. And the trailer doesn't give us much in the way of explaining. the supernatural force, but we know there is a supernatural force that seems to come and attack when you make enough noise. What we've seen in this trailer is that the family, they live in basically total silence, as we see, and they go through very elaborate ways to try and mask their noise.
I read somewhere that the kids are supposed to be deaf, I think.
Oh.
Something like that? I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up.
Well, I'm sure that will provide they'll have some scene where the kid's whimpering or crying and they're like, shut up, shut up.
I'm actually kind of excited for this movie.
Yeah.
Just based on the trailer alone, like, I don't know too much about John Krasinski as an actor or director, because I never was really into The Office, and I don't think I've seen him in anything else, but this seems to be sort of like a little pet project for him. You know, a lot of times those kinds of like actor-director pet projects can turn out pretty solid. So,
Yeah, I don't know if he wrote it or not. I knew it was a spec script before it's being made into a movie now. It's still early. I don't remember what they said the release date.
Sometime this year.
Just sometime this year. So
yeah.
I get the feeling that it'll be a first half of 2018 movie. I don't imagine it'll be a second half. And it's weird that, at least in the last couple of years, the best horror movies, in my opinion, are always first half of the year.
I mean, Get Out came out in February.
and it really set the bar incredibly high.
It was surprising. Usually they release shit horror movies in January and February.
And in 2016, we had The Witch, which I know premiered at Sundance the year before, but it got its wide release in like January or February. I think the Goodnight Mommy was in the first half of the year, at least for its U.S. release.
Raw came out wide release last year in February.
That's right. That's right.
It's a really great movie.
Yeah, so even though the fall is the time where we get the majority of the scary movies, it seems like the really good, like, high concept indie ones that I like so much are always in the first half of the year.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It shows, hey, even the crap months, you can still get some great stuff being made. So there's integrity in some places.
Well, we're getting Annihilation later this month, which I'm extremely excited for. Alex Garland's next film. So, you know, maybe I think the first half of 2018 is gonna give us some good horror movies. I think all the shit's gonna come in like the summer and the fall.
Oh yeah.
Usually with horror movies, we get a nice spread of shit throughout the year.
Yes.
Let's be real.
Okay, that's true.
even 2017. I mean, there were like 3 franchises that tried to get kickstarted again that all failed.
Yeah. All right, Ben. What other news do you have for us?
Okay, I have one other story for us. Stephen Lang, the blind guy from Don't Breathe, has reconfirmed.
And more importantly, the evil Colonel guy from Avatar. Everybody's favorite movie, Avatar.
But he just confirmed that there's a sequel to Don't Breathe in the works. Don't Breathe was one of my favorites of 2016.
I agree.
Fede Alvarez directed it. He did the Evil Dead remake, which I thought was pretty good, actually.
I wasn't as hot on the Evil Dead remake.
I like the Evil Dead remake for what it is. It definitely doesn't capture the spirit of Sam Raimi's version.
It's
or Evil
hard
Dead
to compare it, but...
Well, let's save this for a future episode because I think there's a lot to talk about in there. But what do you guys think about the idea of a Don't Breathe sequel?
Well, the thing that interested me about the story is Sam Raimi said it's the greatest idea for a sequel he's ever heard.
Even better than Spider-Man 2?
Yeah,
Oh,
even better than Evil Dead 2.
Oh, that's, high bar.
Sam Raimi is the man for sequels, honestly.
He's
Evil
not
Dead
just
2
blind.
and Spider-Man 2 are
Not blind,
both
he's
better
deaf
than the
now,
first.
too.
That's true, but he directed both of those movies, and he did not. I don't think he's directing this next one, is he?
No, but he
Alvarez.
produced both of them.
Right.
Well, all I'm going to say is I'm not going to write it off immediately, but I'm a little bit nervous about it. The landscape for horror franchises is fucking garbage right now, and I really liked Don't Breathe, and I thought that it wrapped up pretty nicely, and I don't think it necessarily needs a sequel. So if they do one and it's good, I'm all for it. but I'm concerned that they're just trying to start a new horror franchise that's going to get convoluted and shitty.
Right, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Horror movies, a lot of great ones, but franchises, it doesn't work. And I think that's just the context of horror movies as well. Once you expose the monster or expose audiences to the same sort of fear over and over again, they're gonna get tired of it.
Especially when a film doesn't necessarily leave itself open to a sequel. The blind guy doesn't die in Don't Breathe. So
No, but it's not like you expect, how is he gonna chase these people down? Is he gonna walking down the street?
My
like, with a
question is,
cane?
are they
That's
going to
what
make
I'm
it a
saying.
sequel or a prequel?
Well, they're saying it might be a prequel, which almost makes me even more nervous because they're talking about it maybe being the story of
How he kidnapped
the girl who he blames for the death of his daughter that we see in the basement in the movie, but
that doesn't even seem terribly exciting.
no, it's like why do like I wasn't watching that movie thinking like, oh yeah, I really want to dive deeper into that girl's story. I want to know how she ended up kidnapped. No, like I just accepted it. Like it was just like, oh, this guy's a fucking crazy psychopath. Like that seemed to be a detail that was like character development more so than anything. And I don't
Right.
So I don't know, man. I don't know. Like there's good people working on this, so it has the potential to be really good, but I'm going to remain skeptical for a while until they give me reason not to be, you know?
Yeah, I think I sort of feel the same way. I really enjoyed the first movie, but they don't leave you with anything you want to learn about this character or to see anything else within this world that they set up.
I think
Is
it has
it-
potential to take awful decisions, but could be good, you know?
Did it say if it was the same director?
Yeah,
or not?
it is
Yeah,
the
it's
same
Fede
director,
Alvarez,
Okay, so hey, I always
That's what I'm saying. There's good people involved on it. Him and Sam Raimi, you know, like it's got that potential. But the problem with that is that if it ends up being bad, it's even more of a letdown because of the potential that it had.
right. Well, at least this seems to make more sense for a sequel than something like Sicario 2. So at least it's
Yeah, which I'm really angry is happening.
yeah, should not be happening, but
That's
that's a horror movie in its own right.
All right.
I think if that is it for our news, we can just jump into our
Let's jump into
romance films.
our Love Hurts. episode.
Love does hurt.
Yes.
First movie we watched was My Bloody Valentine.
Came out in 1981.
Yeah.
It is a Canadian film as well.
Yes.
About a small mining town that
In
is
Nova Scotia.
Yeah, Nova Scotia, which I didn't know first watching it that it even took place in Canada. And I don't know, is it like, do they say it's Canada or do they try and cover up? They're like, this is Delaware.
I mean,
or
they
something.
never explicitly state, but like these people all have very thick Canadian accents. so-
Wasn't the town they lived in named like Valentine Falls or
Valentine
something?
Oh, yes.
Bluff.
Valentine Bluff,
Valentine
yeah.
Bluff, I think. What I thought was interesting, the conception of this movie was basically they wanted to make a slasher film centered around a holiday that had not already been done. And so they went with Valentine's Day. So basically, the entire conceit of this movie is a Valentine's Day slasher.
I feel it succeeds in a couple places. First, the idea revolves around this man, Harry Warden. He did something 20 years ago. There was something that has shaken the town, and they haven't had a Valentine's Day dance or celebration for 20 years. And now they are having one again, but murders have begun to occur across the town, and people believe that Harry Warden is back for vengeance.
Heart-shaped chocolate candy boxes are appearing everywhere with human hearts inside.
Yeah, so what we learn not too far into the movie, pretty early on, is that on Valentine's Day, 20 years prior to this, in preparation of the dance, one of the miners forgot to check the methane levels in the mine, and there was an explosion that left several miners trapped underground for, what was it, like 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Something like that.
right?
By the time they cleared the cave in, only Harry Warden was left, and he had survived by eating all of the other miners.
Which we learn through exposition given by a creepy bartender.
Given by Captain Exposition, the bartender.
Yeah, right.
And so Harry blames the miners for not doing their job properly because they were distracted by the Valentine's dance. So he went on a killing spree. And threatened that if they ever held a Valentine's celebration in the town again, he would be there.
There were like two bosses that went out of their way to leave the mine early so they could go get drunk at the party.
Right. So that's the motivation. But this has been 20 years, and he's supposedly been in an insane asylum for 20 years. So there's the investigation into like how is he out, like what's happening here, and it takes some unexpected twists and turns.
Yes, in a race against time to capture the killer, the police chief has to figure out who, if it is Harry Warden, how and where he is, so he can try and put a stop to this before the Valentine's Day dance occurs.
Well, after the first couple of kills, they do cancel the Valentine's Day dance. So
right,
all the local kids or young adults decide that they're going to hold a party at the mine in like the rec room since they can't have their dance.
I think they're supposed to be older than high school aged.
I think so.
Mine, so.
Right. I think it's basically just like this town's entire economy revolves around the mine, so like everybody who lives in town pretty much works in the mine.
Yeah.
Right. And I can appreciate that because it seems like horror movies, it's not just teenagers that act like morons. You can have 20-somethings doing immature, dumb stuff too.
Well, and what I really appreciate about this movie too is aside from the central like Valentine's Day conceit, like the idea to have it all centered around like a mine and like a deranged mine worker who's like killing people with a pickaxe and shit like that. Like that's pretty creative, That's not something that you would normally associate with like love or Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So they don't try to make it like too hammy in regards to the whole like Valentine's plot line,
No.
And when they do connect it, it's in like a campy, fun way.
Yes.
Right, they don't ever say anything like, oh, this dumb Hallmark holiday is just a corporate cash grab. It seems like this town like genuinely does enjoy the holiday.
Well, right, because they're called Valentine's
Right.
Bluff.
Yeah.
Like it's really just an excuse for them, Like it's an excuse to get drunk and have festivities and shit like that, which is really all you need.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a town called Canadian Boxing Dayville, and they get lit up on the 26th.
I'm sure Canadian Boxing Dayville gets lit up. Absolutely.
They don't have a Thanksgiving, though.
Oh, we did not mention that this is directed by George Mihalka. I believe that's how his name is pronounced. I don't know what else he's done. I guess he's a Canadian director.
I
don't know what else he's done. I should mention we watched the director's cut.
Yes, that is important to distinguish.
It's very obvious what was in the director's cut versus normal because the footage is much grainier
right,
in the recut footage.
Right, it's like, 9 additional minutes in the director's cut from the theatrical release? And it's basically all of the gore.
Yeah. But what I will say is this movie stands out in comparison to Halloween and Friday the 13th in the creativity of the kills.
Yes, absolutely.
They get very creative with what they do in it in comparison to your standard stabby stab fare
right,
of early era slasher movies. And I really respect that.
I do too. And unlike something like Halloween or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, there's like an investigation element in this one. Like, who is the killer really? Because at a certain point, like, we realize as the audience, like, there's no way it can actually be Harry Warden. And so it comes down to not so much stopping the killer as figuring out who it is so you can stop them. I don't think you'd be able to do that if we get too much like characterization of the killer. He wears miner's coveralls, a gas mask, a helmet with a lamp on it, and kills people with a pickaxe. Like his look is all you really get on.
Right.
Like,
Well,
in
even
terms of
the
characterization.
legend of Harry Warden that they try and build up, like the whole like he turned into a cannibal down in the mines and all that. I thought that was a bit excessive. They might as well like said, and then he turned into a rat creature.
Well, I mean, how
transformed into
else?
mines.
How else would he have survived for 6 weeks?
Well,
you know?
Yeah.
well, I think that's an issue of just the way they set him up, because then this is something I'll get into when we talk about the remake. I feel like they try and handle that situation, and they actually try and turn it into something where I feel like it builds up the character a little better, doesn't become too absurd or ridiculous. Like, oh, he became a cannibal in the mines. That's a little crazy. Maybe he should have been eating people during the movie. I would have appreciated.
I mean,
that
doesn't bother me at all, because like they're trapped for 6 weeks, and in order to survive, he has to eat the other miners. And they don't say
it's
whether
the
like
fact that I don't find that tidbit incredibly interesting, or just feels out of place with the way that they talk about this character. If it doesn't matter, it feels like it's such an extreme point to put into.
Well,
his
I mean, I
development.
think it did matter enough to send him to the insane asylum, you know?
well, I think
that's a small thing that I just say with the fact that I don't find the way they built him up, because there are a lot of movies that do it. You got something like Alien where they don't give any explanation, or you got something like Friday the 13th that does give a whole backstory to the character itself. So I just felt it wasn't very interesting. That was my only point.
I
But
mean, that's
you're right.
fair.
The kills in this movie do get pretty creative. It's not just people getting stabbed with pickaxes. He shoves one lady in a dryer.
yeah, at the
which,
laundromat after cutting her heart out, and then they find her in the dryer, and she's all like burned up and shit.
Right, yeah, looks
and
like a Slim Jim.
right, and like those effects look really good
Yeah.
too. All the
I-
effects look.
I love that sequence when she, discovers the box with the note with the Valentine's poem.
Yeah, the biggest way to add menace to your character is to have him write
Have him
rhymes.
do poems. And like when Captain Exposition bartender hears the young people planning their party at the mine, and he's the only one who actually believes in the Harry Warden legend. So he's always like trying to like, oh, you better not do such and such, or Harry Warden's gonna come get you. So he decides to try to scare the kids at the mine by setting up this elaborate like Harry Warden puppet that when they open a door, it'll like pull a string that has like a dummy holding a pickaxe, it'll pull it up, and he's like setting it up, and he's super proud of himself, and he keeps opening the door and then closing it and opening it.
Yeah,
and
he
then
loves that.
and then at one point he opens the door and the puppet is gone and the killers are right there and stabs him like right through the eye with the pickaxe.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
was great. And like Ben said, you can really tell what is from the director's cut.
Well,
and
it's
what's
almost
not.
all, as you mentioned too, almost all of the things we got from the director's cut are just extended moments of the gore that we get.
Right. It seems that in the theatrical release, they cut out the actual moments of like we wouldn't have actually seen any of the kills,
Which makes me wonder if that affected its, because I don't know if it was a huge success or anything when it was released, but I probably would have found it pretty boring and tame if we did not get those extended moments of violence.
I mean, sometimes I definitely think that leaving things up to the imagination is more effective, but in this
it's not
case,
even up to the imagination. It's just cut down like PG-13. Someone getting shot without blood splurting out.
well,
Just one of those.
it certainly was a rating thing, and it was to keep
Yeah.
the film from getting like an X rating. Which is what they were at the time, rather than NC-17. But
Yeah.
like
How tame.
the theatrical cut was R-rated, but because of the way that the rating system has changed these days, you can do a lot more with an R rating
yeah.
than you
As
used to be
we
able
see
to
in the
do.
sequel.
Yes.
Essentially, the main character is this guy, what's his name, TJ or something
Yes.
like that. He's the sheriff's son, and he's come back into town recently.
Yeah, they keep saying that he went off to the West Coast.
The West Coast.
Which, if it's in Canada.
Which I assumed was California until I realized it was a Canadian film. I was like, oh no, you've been off in Vancouver. But yeah, he's been off on the West Coast doing something or other, and he's recently come back to the town, and it's with his return that all these kills start happening. So nobody ever really like outright suspects him, like accuses him of committing the murders, but that's what the red herring is essentially supposed to be, is like, oh, is it this guy? Because he's bitter about having to be back in this little podunk town, working in the mine, doing what his dad tells him to.
And he has this like love triangle.
Because he was dating this chick and then he just up and left without telling her, and now she's dating one of his friends, I guess?
Yeah, Axel.
Axel. So there's this weird love triangle where he's like trying to win back his girl, but she's dating Axel. So, and you know, all that stuff, normally I would think it's just kind of trite and obnoxious, but I think for this film, it works pretty well, creating this sort of like weird dynamic between all of these characters, rather than just like, oh, they're just a group of friends and we got the slut and the stoner and like the idiot and like the jock.
This is a mining town, so instead we got the funny fat guy. We got the not on screen as much but more obnoxious funny skinny dude.
Yeah, who keeps snorting beer through a straw.
Yeah.
He's almost as bad as the guy from the 1990s It movie. The one dude who was on Night Court. Like, throughout the whole movie, you can tell he's ad-libbing, just like, hey, fucking, what's up, chief?
Yes. Yeah, like, I swear to God, like, that guy who was snorting beer had one party trick, and he only resorted to that every
and it was
time.
Snorting beer.
We should mention that dude just died, apparently.
Yeah, he like
so
just
RIP.
died.
Oh shit, that was the dude. What?
Alf Humphreys.
Oh, God.
That doesn't mean his character wasn't the most insufferable.
Oh no, his character is the most obnoxious in the movie, but he did just die.
man.
Rest in peace.
Had he been anything else? I don't recognize the
Nope.
name.
Uh,
Okay, damn.
Was he
don't
not?
think so.
I think he was. I think he was actually one of the more famous actors in that movie. Not like anybody.
Well, that would,
Yeah,
that
I
would
mean,
explain
in this
his
movie
behavior.
if his standout movie was My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, he was in X-Men 2.
Oh, okay.
He was in First Blood, the first Rambo movie.
Oh, who was he in the First Blood?
Lester. I've never
In the
actually
First Blood.
I've never actually seen First Blood.
It's
so-
a good
Man,
movie.
it's very good.
Super good.
Yeah, he's in that. It looks like his 4 most famous film roles are X-Men 2, First Blood, The Uninvited, and this movie, My
The
Bloody
Uninvited,
Valentine.
Wow.
So,
All right, well.
no, it seems like he sort of has a history of being in these kind of like schlocky movies, but he does have a very lengthy IMDb page. Like he's been in a lot of shit. So
Unfortunately, he is not the best part of this movie.
no, his character is extremely annoying.
And one thing I'll say, just as we mentioned, the red herring of TJ. One unfortunate thing about this movie, if you haven't guessed it yourself about what we've described of the characters, who you think the killer is, the movie doesn't give you a lot of options. Because at a certain point, you decide to yourself, okay, it can't be Harry Warden.
Right.
It has to be someone else. There's
Right.
no way this haggard 60-year-old man is going around hacking people to bits. And they don't really make you believe that it's any certain character. So.
Right. It basically comes down to, at least for us, we at a certain point we're like, well, it's either got to be TJ or Axel. It's one of the two of them. But what I will say is that the movie does a pretty good job of, at least for me, like flip-flopping back and forth, like, who is it? Because at one point I'll be like, oh, it's definitely TJ. And then another point I'll be like, oh, no, well, maybe it's Axel. And I'll be like, oh, no, it's TJ. At a certain point, the list of suspects is very small, but I think they still do a pretty good job of keeping you guessing until
Yeah.
the end.
I want to emphasize how great that whole sequence where they have all of the coats hanging from the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
And
Where the guy and the girl go off to like have sex, and then the guy goes to get some beer, and the girl is being chased around, and all the hooks are falling down with like the mining coveralls on them, and she's just getting really disoriented and stuff.
Yeah.
And then she ends up being impaled through the head on one of the shower heads in like the communal shower.
Yeah, which honestly I thought was one of the coolest, most creative kills in the movie.
Yeah, no, I thought so too. Like
how they had like water coming out of her mouth through the shower head.
Yeah, that was a little silly, but I enjoyed that.
No, I thought it was
just as a
great.
visual.
Like all the kills are pretty spectacular. And the guy who goes into the kitchen and there's the big pot of boiling water filled with hot dogs.
yeah.
He's like, "Ooh, hot dog." And then he just gets his head shoved into the pot of boiling water.
Yeah, it's great. I like how they don't rely on jump scares either.
Yeah,
like, all
there's
the
like
kills
none.
are creative, and yeah, there's no real jump scares. I mean, things happen unexpectedly, sure.
But I mean, this was like the early 80s, sort of before jump scares.
Yeah,
were...
like when did that even start? Like jump scares just as a thing.
I don't know. Like there were definitely jump scares prior to that. Like the most notable one I can think of is in Alien when the captain is in the
you're absolutely right.
is in the
air ducts.
The air ducts. But as much as I usually hate jump scares, I find that one still extremely
that one has
effective.
build up.
Extreme, like the build up to it is nuts. But we'll
I always think of that and the end of the first Friday the 13th movie.
Oh yeah, when Jason comes up from the water and
yeah.
grabs the girl in the canoe. Yeah, that's right. At a certain point, a few of the main characters decide to go down into the mine because they're drunk and the girls want to see where the guys work and whatever. It's all really pretty stupid, but it does serve as a great way to get them into a really fucking awesome location for the rest of this movie.
Right, because this was actually shot in a mine.
In an
town.
actual mine, in Nova Scotia, and I saw that some of the places they were filming in the mine were like 900 feet below ground, which
my God.
Which is crazy. They had to take in like special lighting equipment that didn't have like any sort of spark because there was a legitimate danger of starting like a methane explosion, like
That's
shooting in the
insane.
mine. I also saw that when the town, which I can't remember the name of, I guess it's a pretty famous mining town in Canada, but
Coal Town.
When they found out that this film would be made in their town, they spent $50,000 like cleaning up the whole town, repainting the mine, like doing everything, making everything nice and pretty. And so the film production gets there and they're like, well, shit, the reason we picked this is because it had this sort of like rundown, dilapidated look. So then the production spent $75,000 additional dollars re-dirtying the mine, which is crazy.
That's movie efficiency right there for you.
But eventually, down in the mine, the characters all end up being separated and hunted down one by one by the killer. And like I said, it goes back and forth. Like, is it Axel? Is it TJ? Before we get into spoilers at the end, is there anything else you guys want to talk about, or should we just talk about the ending?
They did a good job dirtying up the mine.
Oh yeah, it looks gross.
Looks very authentic. I love the sequence where the killer is taking out all of the lights one by one.
Oh yeah,
in the mine shaft.
Yeah, where he's just like
Iconic.
walking. Yeah, that is really a great moment. And he's walking down the mine, just shattering the light bulbs one at a time.
That's
so it's getting darker.
Something
and
they
darker.
recreate in the original, but
In the remake.
to lacking success. But we're gonna get into all that in just a second.
We'll get into that soon enough.
Yes. Well, I forget exactly the moment when we realize that it's because it's Axel, TJ, and their love interest, all three of them at a certain point.
Sarah, right? Sarah, yeah.
They're all running away. They take a turn. TJ and Sarah are behind Axel, and they come up on the turn, and they look down at this puddle of water and a broken rail. to make you think that he fell in the water and I guess he's drowned, so they leave him there. Which, for me, at that point, it was such like a deliberate setup or an attempt at misdirection that it just sort of really clicked for me at that point.
Right, it's like,
But
oh, Axel has been killed by something other than
by
the killer.
tripping
you
in
know?
water, yeah, and it's
By
not
tripping,
like...
yeah, by falling into like a pool of water in the mine.
Well, I feel like they were trying to be cyclical with it to the point where it's super heavy-handed. It's like the original killer got left behind by the people he trusted too.
No. Oh god.
Yeah,
I didn't even read into it like that.
I didn't
at all.
read into
Shit.
it that way either. But
Right, but once TJ and Sarah they run out, the Harry Warden figure comes out, attacks TJ. He struggles with him, grabs if we haven't mentioned before, he's in a whole gas mask, miner getup. So,
I think I mentioned that earlier.
yeah, he rips off the mask, and then that's when we find out it's Axel. And I thought the love triangle part, maybe he's just super envious of TJ, and so he's gone crazy and snapped.
Well, I thought he was going to try to frame TJ because TJ's just come back into town. I thought that it was going to be like, he's trying to...
Now that would have been cool.
He's trying to get like TJ arrested so he can have Sarah all to himself. That would have been fine. But then we get a flashback and discover that...
We find out that Axel, as a kid, was the son of one of the bosses at the mine that Harry Warden murdered 20 years ago. He was hiding under the bed.
And he saw Harry Warden kill his dad.
And rip his dad's heart out. He got blood all over his face. So that's the real reason why.
So then he's just crazy because childhood trauma.
Yeah, right.
And then after that, a cave-in happens and like crushes his arm. And so he...
Oh, but before that, we get a wild scene. I've never... seen something like this in a film. It's the final confrontation between Axel and TJ. They start up one of those like carts that go on the rails, moving people back and forth.
I think that's actually before the reveal that Axel's the killer. I think.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. But they're taking the cart up the incline,
right?
Out of
And
the
they're
mine.
fighting each other. TJ's got a shovel, and Harry Warden's got the pickaxe, and they're just having a duel with each other.
On a very slow moving mine cart. It's like a less high octane Indiana Jones.
Yes, exactly. It's so
speed, but the speed is 5 miles an hour.
Hey, this is Canada, so use kilometers.
But it's such a weird thing. I don't know if I've seen, because there's always that moment where the protagonist is running away from the villain or trying to not get killed by them, but it's never really come down to just a clashing between weapons, of swords, and it's something I didn't know I wanted in a movie until they did it.
I agree with you. Like, I think it was great. What I do really like about this movie is that the killer's not so much an unstoppable force as he just like has an advantage because he has weapons,
Right.
Yeah. Like you get the impression that like you could defeat him if you're prepared enough because he is just like a guy,
Right.
He
And
does seem to have a little bit of slasher teleportation.
A little bit, yeah, where he sort of just appears places where
right.
where they need him to be, but it's not too heavy-handed.
Yeah.
But so the very end is after their final fight, part of the mine collapses with Axel on one side and TJ and Sarah on the other. Axel's arm is crushed in the rocks. And as the cops show up and start trying to dig him out, he very, very quickly, with his pocket knife, cuts his arm off.
His whole arm.
His whole entire arm in the span of like 30 seconds. He just saws it right off.
I thought that was a cool little character thing just on him. Like, he was so determined and insane that he just chops his arm right off.
Yeah,
he
and
doesn't hesitate.
and then it ends with him stumbling off down one of the mining tunnels,
Cackling something.
cackling, saying, "Sarah, will you be my bloody Valentine?" Something like that. Yeah, I think they went a little overboard with trying to make him appear crazy at the end. I think that was a little bit.
Because
Having him cackling was kind of fun. Not gonna lie.
I don't know. I think it was a little
at
bit too
this
much.
point, they were just trying to wrap up the movie, giving it the absurdity
Yeah.
by like, this truly was my bloody Valentine.
Right. I think that ending was pretty dumb, I guess.
Well, they were obviously trying to set themselves up for a sequel, which this
Never ended
movie-
up
Yeah, this
happening.
movie never ended up. It
don't
wasn't a
think it
big
was.
success or anything.
No,
so.
no. It definitely doesn't have the same legacy as a lot of other slasher movies.
Right, but I think part of
Definitely
that problem,
a cult hit.
a cult hit, and I think a deserved cult classic status, because there's a lot of really good horror elements in this. Like, it's a pretty
Right.
damn good slasher
Yeah.
movie.
Some of that I think does come down to just the character Harry Warden himself not being terribly interesting.
The character is not memorable. It
Right.
doesn't. It's not the kind of character that you build a horror franchise around, like Michael Myers or Freddy or Jason.
No, because
Which
those
is
are sort
fine,
of like
which is
clean
fine.
slates.
You
that,
know, honestly, I'm glad My Bloody Valentine doesn't have a whole slew of sequels, because I
Yeah.
don't think it needs it.
Yeah.
I
certainly
like
they would have been diminishing returns without a doubt.
the one thing I do like about the ending is that Axel gets away, is that the killer gets away
Yeah.
and he just sort of disappears into the mines. And I mean, realistically, he probably died not long after that, because
He just bled out.
because he just cut his whole fucking arm off,
Yeah.
and he has no medical attention, so he probably just went around the corner and died. But I like that they leave it open ended in that way. But I'm glad that it didn't spawn a whole shitload of fucking sequels.
I feel like if they would have ended it with him just getting arrested, it would have felt like a Scooby-Doo
Yeah,
episode.
And they would have ended it all with like, "Well, but why did he do it? Who knows?
I would have
Would've
gotten
been
away with it if it wasn't for you
meddling
fucking-
kids.
You
you
meddling
meddling Canucks. Should we rate this?
Yeah, sure.
If Eugene's not gonna cough
Yeah,
himself
right.
to
God,
death
I'm
over
sorry.
there?
I guess I'm just dying. Jeez.
I guess so.
Oh.
Well, yeah, we
It's been real rough
we
for
should
me.
definitely finish it up before
Yeah,
Eugene
before I
You
dies.
should
expired.
snort some beer. I think that'll help.
Is my lung supposed to look like this? I just coughed up a little bit of lung. It
Yeah, I
looks
think that's a
weird.
pretty normal
Yeah.
looking lung. Just like shove it back
Nice
in there.
and brown.
It's ashy.
Yeah, just,
Shove it back in. Okay.
yeah, just shove it back in there.
Okay.
I guess you can start, Eugene.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Well, for me, as I've said, I don't find the character or the way they build him up. It's certainly nothing as iconic as Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. Outside of that, if it existed in a vacuum outside of other horror movies, I'd say it's effective. It's done well. It looks pretty good too. And as we mentioned, the kills are pretty creative. But I think it just suffers from a lack of any sort of tension throughout the film. I wasn't completely bought into the which one is it between TJ and Axel. Maybe not if I didn't know who it was. I just didn't find either choice entirely captivating, especially with the way they try and explain the reasons why he did it were unnecessary when they already could have explained it with things they set up already. So for that, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Definitely worth checking out. Go Canada. So there we go.
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly. It's a solid film. You know, it doesn't try to do anything too out of the ordinary. Aside from its setting, which I really like a lot. The killer is just kind of, yeah, I agree with you, not super interesting. It's more about the mystery behind the killings rather than the killer himself. The effects are great. The kills are really creative. There's some awesome gore, but that's some stuff that we would not have without the director's cut, because as you can tell from the degraded footage, like, all of the actual like money shots were cut out of the theatrical version.
Right.
So I'm glad we watched the director's cut, but that fucking ending is just so dumb, and Axel's motivation is just so dumb when they could have done something smarter without much more effort, you know? So for that, I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Well, I have to give it a lot of props for how creative the kills are. Unlike a lot of slashers of the time, like I said before, we're not getting, stabby, stab kills. We're getting stuff a little more creative than that. And, for its time especially, the gore is really stand out. It's a lot more gratuitous. Granted, we watched the director's cut, which I have to say, if you're going to watch this movie, check out the director's cut.
Watch the director's cut.
I'm looking on IMDb, and the runtime difference is apparently only 3 minutes.
Oh, really?
Surprisingly. But yeah, if you're seeking this movie out, make sure it's 93 minutes long.
Yes.
Now
go
we're
for the
33.
director's cut.
You want those extra few minutes. 'Cause
Yeah,
it really,
get those
it
money
really
shots.
adds up, But yeah, I there's definitely shortcomings to the movie. I thought a lot of the high school characters were kind of insufferable.
Or college aged, whatever they were.
Whatever.
Right.
20-somethings.
Yeah.
20-somethings.
The kids, quote unquote.
Yeah.
They were kind of insufferable.
I liked the big fat guy with the walrus mustache who was cooking food on an exposed car engine.
Yes, that's right.
In the junkyard
Yeah.
earlier. I liked him a lot. He survived a lot longer than I expected to.
I have to say it was a pleasant surprise when I first saw this movie, though. I came into it with very low expectations, and I think it deserves its cult status. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I think definitely check out the unrated version.
Yeah, it's worth the watch for sure. So that gives My Bloody Valentine 1981 a average of 3.5 pods out of 5. Nice little cult hit, worth the watch. So moving on, we're going to be talking about My Bloody Valentine 3D, the 2009 remake of the film we just discussed, directed by Patrick Lussier. Has he done anything else of note?
Yeah.
He wrote Terminator Genesis.
Yes,
That's right.
that's right.
When
And
we
he
saw
was-
his name, I thought he was connected to Saw, but I was totally wrong.
No, and he was also the editor on Scream.
Yes.
Which is,
yes, that's right. He's like a Wes Craven collaborator.
yeah, and he also did Drive Angry, I think. Yes, he's mostly
all over the place.
It looks like looking at his IMDb,
He's an editor.
He's mostly an editor. I feel like I'd fucking need a drink to talk about this movie.
But it was actually a success in the box office when it came out.
Yeah.
It performed pretty damn well considering
hit.
it's a movie based on a film from the 80s that
nobody's ever
Well,
heard of.
also, I feel like we should contextualize it a little bit. It came out in 2009 in the peak of the 3D craze,
Yes.
and it was the first
God.
real 3D horror movie we got at the time, I
Yes,
think.
it was the first R-rated movie to use the real D technology. or
Yeah,
whatever.
I can't think of any. I mean, after that, we got some 3D horror movies.
I mean, it's not the
like
first.
Saw 3D.
It's not the first 3D horror movie. Period.
Well, no.
like fucking
Amityville 3D came out in the
Amityville 3D,
70s.
Jaws 3,
Jaws, yeah.
Jaws 3D. I fucking hate 3D so
and
much.
they do the same damn things in
Yeah.
every 3D. They have shit flying at you on the screen. They
And-
have someone's hand reaching up super close.
They
It's
really have
all-
to emphasize that it's a 3D movie.
and
Right.
it has not aged well watching it not in 3D. I just thought that this is also the same year that fucking Avatar came out.
Yep.
Oh, my
Which
God.
makes sense.
Which
you know?
makes sense. Yeah, but also thinking just like as much as I hate Avatar, how much better it looked than this movie.
Here's a question I have for you guys. While there's some definitely obvious 3D shots, as a whole, I don't think it felt like a 3D movie.
No, and the
Which
problem-
makes me wonder, since it came out the same year as Avatar, did they like stick in those 3D shots deliberately after the success of Avatar?
I don't think so.
But I think that sort of on that point, I agree that the 3D in there must have definitely been done because they realized at a certain point 3D was big. It also means you get like double the amount because of the tickets. So
Right.
even if that probably helped its success, honestly.
Yeah.
The fact that it was in 3D. That's the same thing with
This came out. This came out before Avatar.
Oh, it
too.
did?
This came out on January 16th, 2009. In Fuck You,
Whoa,
It's January.
what?
Dumping Grounds.
how the
Avatar came out in like the fall. So
I guess as we were talking about, the best horror movies come out in the first half of the year.
no, it's definitely in that
man.
Fuck You, It's January dumping ground. And so yeah, I don't think the 3D was an added gimmick later. And I also didn't think that because there are a lot of shots where there's not something particularly like 3D coming at the screen, but where it's obviously the actors in front of a green screen and there's no reason for that to be other than they can create the depth.
Oh
in
god,
the 3D.
yeah. I didn't
'Cause
even think about
There was
that.
some bad
Shit.
CGI.
Well,
in
right,
this movie.
because I kept looking at it and I kept being like, are they in front of a green screen? Why? There's no reason they couldn't have shot that on location. And then after thinking that like 3 or 4 different times, I'm like, oh, it's so they could create the illusion of depth in 3D. That's why.
The biggest times they did that were like when they were outside at the mining
Yep.
place.
Or when they were on the mine cart and you could tell that they
Yeah.
were just like in a cart and then the moving green screen background behind them. So this movie stars Jensen Ackles of Supernatural fame as a guy who comes back to his hometown after a 10-year absence in order to sell his father's mine and basically put everybody in the town out of work.
and so obviously everyone in the town fucking hates him.
And they have,
Only at certain points in the movie, though. Sometimes people really think he's a good guy.
Yeah, they have no consistency with the way the town feels about him, and for
No.
the reasons why as well. Because first, it's that he's selling off the mine. Oh, you're gonna take away the lifeblood of all these people in this town. But there's a scene, he's at a bar, and at this point the killings have already started. And then they blame him for the murders that are happening. They don't even mention the mine being closed down.
right. Well, because similarly with the original, the killings start up right when he's returned to town after a long absence. Before we get into that, we should talk about the intro.
Yeah,
in,
so
in
first-
relation
Oh, yes.
in relation to the originals, because we still have the Harry Warden
Right.
Yeah,
story.
so we should mention that in the first 10 minutes of the movie, they start with these kids like partying at the mine.
The very
beginning, the
that
opening
montage
credits.
of the
Okay, true. Yeah, we
newspapers.
get a killer montage.
we get the opening credits talking about Harry Warden killing a bunch of people in the mine because of an explosion that trapped him in there, and that he's been in, but afterwards he's in a coma, and that it was because of a mistake that Jensen Ackles' character made.
Yes, which
So
if you
the-
aren't familiar, he's one of the dudes from Supernatural, the one without the long hair.
Right, which
I
is
don't know the other.
which
I don't know their actual names. in the show.
fun tangent. Yeah, he's Dean Winchester. I used to be a big Supernatural fan. Him and his co-star in Supernatural, Jared Padalecki, were both in 2009 in remakes of famous slasher films.
Oh, really? What
Jared
was-
Padalecki's the main guy in the Friday the 13th remake.
Oh,
I still
is he?
haven't seen
Oh,
that
fuck.
remake.
Yeah.
Not
So,
gonna lie.
It's pretty bad.
So yeah, we get this in newsreel form where we're seeing newspaper articles and the letters are flying at the screen.
Oh,
because
yes.
3D.
It's like a newspaper in the Harry Potter world or something.
Right. So Harry Warden killed a bunch of people in the mine. He's been in a coma, and then the first scene we get is 1 year later, which I was like, okay, they're only doing it a year later instead of 20 years later, like in the original. So that's weird. And Jared Padalecki and his girlfriend and their friends or whatever go back to the mine and they're like partying. And all of a sudden, Harry Warden shows up because he's woken up out of his coma.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
well,
we do get a hospital scene.
Yes,
too.
of him waking up. Oh my god, and he kills like everybody
Yeah,
in the
everyone's
entire hospital.
massacred.
Just like an absolute over the top massacre. Like he's no exaggeration, kills every single person in the
'Cause they-
fucking hospital and
they
paints
show
the wall
him-
with their blood.
And they show him first waking up and then coming, getting closer to one of the nurses, getting ready to strike, and it cuts away to the police chief who's investigating it, and they pan throughout the room, and there's just bodies laying everywhere
with their organs and shit pulled out. Like, the walls are absolutely painted in blood.
They're already setting a precedent. Harry Warden is not a real person.
Harry Warden is either the quietest man alive or fucking Usain Bolt running from room to room.
Well, right. The funny thing too is when they pan the show the shot down the hallway, and there's just like a dozen bodies in the hallway. Yeah. It's like, how did he kill all of these people without being like subdued or something? But so then we cut back to the party at the mine, and this dude, one guy, like, scares his friend with, like, the gas mask, and he's like, oh, who did you think it was Harry Warden? And immediately after saying that, actual Harry Warden shows up and pickaxes him through the fucking head.
Right through the eye.
Right through
in
the
a
eye.
nice little callback to the original.
And, of course, in true 3D fashion.
Yeah, we get the eye sticking right out at us.
And then so actual Harry Warden goes on a killing spree in the mine,
Which
killing
again,
all
we
of
see,
these people.
Yeah, because these group of friends, they were deeper down. They start running away, and they're passing by all the other kids that were partying, and they're all dead. They're all laid out everywhere again.
Right, so at this point, Harry Warden has killed like 100 people already in the span of like 15 minutes.
Right, and this was something I had mentioned. I actually liked the idea he didn't turn into a cannibal, that he killed these people when he was caved in the mines to conserve air, which I think played into more like he's just a very selfish or, just like evil sort of guy to do something
asshole
like that. But then they decide to make
in the
murder
original,
hundreds
in the
of people.
original, they don't imply that he murdered and ate his the other miners who were trapped with. They implied that he ate their bodies after they had died in order to stay alive.
Oh, really? I had assumed that.
Yeah, no. They didn't
that they all
They
just
didn't imply
died?
that he went on the killing spree while he was in the mine. The killing spree came after he had been trapped for 6 weeks, eating the corpses of his friends.
Huh.
But so whatever, that's besides the point. So the only people who end up escaping from this, because Harry Warden is trying to kill Jensen Ackles, the four main friends who we see at the beginning, like Jensen Ackles, his buddy Axel, and then their respective girlfriends, I guess. Yeah. And the cops show up, shoot Harry Warden a couple of times in the back, and he's like a Frankenstein monster who is unstoppable, I guess.
He's on hella painkillers. And also they're the worst shots.
Yeah, and so he stumbles off into the mine, and they chase him, and then it cuts to 10 years later.
Yeah, just immediately.
Which is just absolutely baffling to me. It's already right off the bat way over complicating the plot, which does not stop at any point throughout this movie. Whereas in the original, it's just like, oh, he was trapped for a few weeks, went on a killing spree, and then was put in an insane asylum. They had to have him kill people first, then be in a coma, then wake up and kill a bunch more people, and then escape / maybe be killed, and then 10 years later. Why?
Yeah, it's a real mess. They all look the same anyway, so...
Right, and before they cut ahead, we get the shot of Jensen Ackles with his face splattered with blood that is basically the exact same shot of Axel as a little boy getting the blood splatter on his face after his dad is killed. So we were all just immediately like, oh, so Jensen Ackles is the killer.
Right. And this is, again, it's something that they bring over from the original. It suffers. They really don't try and build up another choice. I mean, they do try and build up Axel as well.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned, it seems so clear to us once the story got it going. And again, if it's just between those two, I still didn't find that very exciting.
Well, this movie, the plot is an absolute mess.
Yeah.
for the most part, it's telling a similar story.
But this is one of those, it's like a real super cynical take on Valentine's Day as a whole, I think. I think they even mentioned something about it being a Hallmark holiday.
Well, there's not that much Valentine's related stuff in this movie, aside from like the boxes with the candy boxes with the heart.
And that one, there's the one chick, when Jensen Ackles gets into town, he passes by a hotel room and there's a couple having sex, and
it's one of the girls.
Yeah, it's one of the girls from the beginning
having sex with some Steve Austin looking apparently
motherfucker. Is the writer of this
movie? He's the screenwriter. The fucking stone cold Steve Austin looking motherfucker.
He looks like, and as we mentioned, he looks like the kind of dude that would write something like My Bloody Valentine.
Right, and all I can really say is this plot is so convoluted that I cannot make a whole lot of sense of it, so I don't think we need to go too heavily into plot.
Really,
there's elements that I think we need to talk about.
Absolutely, but let's lay out the basics. Axel, his friend, Jensen Ackles' friend that escaped the mine with him, he's the police chief now. That's important.
Yeah.
He's married to Jensen Ackles' old girlfriend, Sarah.
Who's played by Jamie King, who was in Sin City.
Right. So the love triangle element is still there, and that these killings are happening right after Jensen Ackles has come back into town and he's selling the mine so people hate him. That's basically all you need to know plot-wise.
Yeah, that's really it.
One thing I want to mention that we were talking about a minute ago was how bad the fan servicey callbacks are in this movie. Every time they bring back, an element or a shot from the original, but they take the context out of it.
Yes.
So it totally loses its teeth.
One thing, they have the heart-shaped boxes and they do the thing with the human heart in them, but they only do it once, if I remember, in the remake. And in the original, they actually use it as a point, like it keeps recurring. The police chief, he sees...
It's part of Harry Warden's MO.
I thought that scene was one of the funniest scenes in the movie, too, because his assistant just brings him this bloody Valentine's box, and
she's like, Sheriff, someone sent you a Valentine, and he touches it and it's all bloody. It's like she brought it in and did not realize that it was leaking
didn't even
blood.
Think twice. She's like, oh, there must be some jelly donuts in here. Bad callback right there. We don't really get it again. We get the scene where we find out that the dude has like a ton of empty heart-shaped boxes in his house.
Yeah. Well, they find that in Axel's old house that is like in the woods where he goes to bang his mistress.
Yeah.
It's just like this old abandoned ratty house with a mattress on the floor and I guess a closet full of empty heart-shaped boxes. Yeah. This whole plot is like stupid misdirection trying to confuse you into thinking, well, either Harry Warden is a Michael Myers style Frankenstein monster who actually is back and killing people. It's Jensen Ackles or it's Axel, and they go way out of their way to really make it confusing by doing things that don't make any sense.
Yeah, so we should mention after Harry Warden ran off, they go back to that later in the movie to describe how they eventually got him and killed him.
Yes,
and buried him in his suit with his pickaxe
in the woods and didn't tell anybody
in the shallowest grave.
Right. Yeah, the cops who shot him in the first place then for some reason decided to keep it a secret that they followed him into the mine and did actually kill him.
And they try and make it sound like, oh, these guys took the law into their own hands, these vigilantes. And it's like,
no, he killed a bunch of people.
Yeah, they were in their right. Absolutely.
They were the law. They were absolutely like,
they're the law.
They weren't vigilantes. They were the cops.
Jobs.
Doing their job. job. Yeah.
God, yeah, it
Well,
was so dumb.
We should mention when Jensen Ackles goes to the mine the first time and he sees Harry Warden, and I say that with air quotes, and he like locks him in this little cage
God, yeah.
and then kills one of the other miners and then disappears. So Jensen Ackles is telling everybody that Harry Warden is actually alive, and that's when the cops are like, no, we killed him and buried him in a shallow grave. And then they go out to the grave with Sarah for some reason. Like, why is she with them?
Right, she's
Yeah,
not.
I don't know why. I don't know why she's so interested in all of this.
No, they go out into the woods and see that his grave, his very shallow grave, is empty. So it's like, oh, did he come back as a zombie or whatever? Oh, the other really fan servicey thing they did was when they kill the maid and put her in the washing or in the dryer. It's like, oh, hey guys, remember the killer with the lady within the dryer in the first one? Also, like, the fan service in this movie really confuses me because I guarantee the people who went to see this movie and who loved it have never seen the original.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like who's their audience?
Well, it's obviously teenage kids.
It's laziness from a writing standpoint, because the fans of the original, the cult fans, are going to be insulted by this movie. And I was insulted by this movie. Like, this is a movie that insults your intelligence.
But we have to remember that there are a group of people who don't care about the substance of a story or the coherence behind a story as long as they provide enough violence or tits, as this movie does.
Oh
and
my
they're
God,
called the general
yeah.
public.
Yeah, there's
The ones that paid $100 million to see this film are the ones who it was advertised as a 3D movie, so a lot of them just probably didn't give a fuck about.
Yeah.
And the nudity in this movie is excessive.
Yeah, we
Yes.
should talk about that TNA scene with Steve Austin.
Yeah.
So he's fucking this girl, right, in this motel room. He leaves the window, like, wide open for everyone to see.
The curtains open,
Yeah.
yeah. And she finds out that he's been filming their bang sessions for his own personal jerkin it use later. So she goes out to confront him at his truck, fully nude.
Yeah.
Fully nude.
Doesn't grab a robe or anything.
Well,
Just-
okay, I looked it up because I was curious. Apparently, the reason that she's naked for this entire extended scene is because when in the script, she wrapped a sheet around herself to go out and confront him, but every time they tried to film it, she kept dropping it. So they would have to start over. And at a certain point, she was just like, fuck it, I'll just do it naked. And so that's why.
Well, we should mention this is a Dimension movie, which is under the Weinstein Company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Well, I mean, at least it was her idea, so we can't say that they were like exploiting her. But
Yes,
that
which I appreciate that fact, because when I first
Right.
saw it, it's like, oh god, this
I
poor
was-
actress has to walk around nude.
Yeah, it just
This
felt
whole-
sleazy.
like full frontal nudity.
No, the
like,
fact she was on board with it, it's like, hey, that's great.
That
it
whole
was her
scene
idea.
just felt so sleazy to
It did.
me, you know?
It did. Yeah. So Steve Austin gets killed by the pickaxe killer, and then she gets.
that should have been the pickaxe killer.
That's what he is, basically. What's his name? Harry Hole? Whatever.
Harry Mineshaft.
Harry Mineshaft. His name would be better be Harry Hole because the
Yeah,
right is a
right,
hole
yeah,
in the
yeah.
ground. But yeah, so then she ends up being chased around for like 5 minutes before she's finally killed. And the point of all of this is just so when Axel is watching this tape to figure out, like, try to find some evidence, that he sees Jensen Ackles walking by the window in like the reflection from the, like, that was the whole point of that entire sequence, is just to put Jensen Ackles at the scene of one of the kills.
And hey, to have some good tits in here, because I guess there was a certain point where horror movies just had to have boobs in them.
But that's the thing that is mind-boggling to me, is that, like, they had to cut out the kills in the original one just to get an R rating, and this has a scene of a young gal running around fully nude, showing everything for like 5 minutes, and it just gets an R rating on its own, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy how much like times have changed and how we're so
They're the level
sort of desensitized to everything
Right.
now, you know? Like, not that there's anything wrong with nudity, and I'm glad that it was her idea rather than Harvey Weinstein's idea, because then it does feel very, very sleazy.
Yeah.
And if she's comfortable enough to do that, like, more power to her. But it's still, there's not enough context for that for it to not feel sleazy. Like, the average viewer is not going to think like, oh, that was the actress's idea. They're just going to think like, this poor girl.
Well,
just
no,
like
the
we
average
did.
the average viewer is gonna think, tits. Oh
yeah, tits.
Yeah. Oh, kill her. And it feels very of its time in
There's
late
a-
2000s.
Yeah,
It's
late 2000s
Very
feel
dated.
to
It's
it.
very dated. Like only the 2000s can be, I think. Like,
yeah, right.
Like I don't know what it is about just the 2000s in general that just dates itself so terribly.
We were all morally bankrupt at that point.
Clearly.
Yeah, at that point, really, this film, it seems to understand that it's trying to deliver on gore and not a whole lot else. It doesn't take itself seriously at all.
Right.
It moves at a... Well, I guess it moves itself at a pace where they are trying to figure out stuff and there's kills sprinkled out, but I found a lot of it just boring.
It's
at a
it's
certain
boring.
point.
The acting is really bad. It's stupid. It's insulting in some of its plot devices and how convoluted it is. And as a fan of or a former fan of Supernatural, I will not say that Jensen Ackles himself is a bad actor, but he's not good in this. He's not good in this. I don't think anybody's good in this. And at a certain point, they start trying to really make the viewer believe that Axel is the killer. I'd never buy that at all because he's the police chief and he's investigating. And we see lots of things of him by himself with nobody else investigating the deaths.
Right.
So if he was the killer, he would not be doing that. He would not have sent himself a box
thing,
with
right.
somebody's heart in it.
Perfect alibi.
But they are trying so hard at a certain point to really point the finger at Axel and like, it's definitely Axel. And it's just not. And I never bought that it was. And so the reveal at the end is that fucking Jensen Ackles has split personalities based off of his trauma from almost being murdered by Harry Warden, whatever, more than once. And so that he has taken on Harry Warden's personality and that he shifts between the two so that he has been the killer all along, which we all called in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
And it was a problem, too, because there is that scene where he's locked in that little, like, gated room in the mine shaft, and I was just like,
and he's looking at Harry Warden, and then they like stand up together. And remember, I was like, oh, it's him. He's hallucinating a split personality of himself.
But then they have it where Harry Warden, like, twists something to lock him in that room. It's like, oh God, if it's him
he did
now,
it himself.
Yeah, he did it himself.
Exactly.
That's so dumb.
It's dumb. It's extremely stupid. And then so they have a fight in the mine, like him, Sarah, and Axel.
In another way, they almost try and do the same thing, the duel between both of them.
Right.
It's not very exciting, though.
It's not. And then Axel shoots like a tank of something, of I guess methane or oxygen or whatever, behind Jensen Ackles, and it explodes.
Right, but first we have them recreating the shot where he's going around the mine shaft, breaking the lights.
Oh,
Yeah.
but
Which doesn't make sense. But there are lights on the other side of the mine shaft.
Did you guys notice too? They did that really stupid thing where, for a split, like just half a second, every time he would actually break one of the light bulbs, he would like be wearing the
Harry Warden
and it would just be for like a second. It's like, we don't need that.
Yeah,
we don't need need that.
You're not the Exorcist. Calm down.
But yeah, there's lights on the other side of the mine tunnel, so it's not really. It's not really making.
Better cycle on back.
He just walks away.
It's not really making anything any darker.
Yeah, it would have been great if he's swinging from both ends.
Just flailing wildly down the hallway.
Spinning in a circle, double-handed. Fucking.
Yeah, Axel shoots the tank, and there's a big explosion, and it's supposed to be like, oh, okay, whatever, that's the end of it.
Well, one thing I want to mention before that is we have the longest sequence where Sarah, Jamie King, has the gun and can't decide who's the killer.
Right.
And just stands there for a solid 5 minutes while the two fight and, like, seriously injure each other.
Well, yeah, like...
and Jensen Ackles stabs Axel with
a pickaxe.
Yeah.
And she's just there. She has a gun. She could shoot him.
She's just watching it all happen.
Right. Well, I guess should we talk about the really stupid reveal that it's Jensen Ackles all along? Where, like, we see from his perspective, and we see Harry Warden, like, walking up behind Sarah, and Jensen Ackles is like, he's right there! You gotta shoot him! You gotta shoot him! He's right there! Sarah, you've got a gun! He's right there! He says he's right there, like, a dozen
I felt
times.
bad for Jensen to have to act out that.
I know. And then Axel and Sarah, like, there's nobody there. And then it's like, dun, dun, dun. Only he can see him. Like,
they
nobody
go back
called
through
that shit.
Everything. And they have to show him taking the mask off after every single kill he does, which is dumb. We didn't need that.
Like, we get it. He's the killer. We get it.
Also, why are you doing that? Why are you taking your mask off after every kill? Is it because that's when he's not Harry Warden at that point?
I don't know. We're supposed to believe that he went himself and found Harry Warden's unmarked grave in the woods.
How did he know?
How did he know that? And dug up his body and moved the body somewhere took the
what do you do with the body?
It doesn't make any sense. So we're supposed to believe that Jensen Ackles has been killed in the explosion. Like, they're taking away Axel, and it seems like he's gonna be okay, even though he's been impaled on a pickaxe, like, in his guts, so he's probably very much gonna die. And then we see, like, all the firefighters there, and one of them comes out, like, limping, and he removes his mask, and it's Jensen Ackles.
God.
Totally unsinged, like, not even, like, his eyebrows burned, not even blackened a little bit, just, like, totally clean-faced, even though he got hit by an explosion that he was standing, like, 3 feet from.
Yeah.
And also, why did he take his mask off around all of those other firefighters? Like, you are not safe! You are not safe! Like, and then roll credits.
Yes. Yeah. At least this movie.
Fuck this movie.
Yeah. Okay, so I brought up the plot synopsis on IMDb to refresh my memory a little bit, and it's definitely written by a 13-year-old.
Oh, okay.
I want to read some highlights from this because it's incredible. Recapping the introductory hospital scene massacre. Not long after, we see Sheriff Burke, Tom Atkins, and one of his deputies touring the hospital massacre scenes. And then in parentheses it says, makes the Saw movies look like a Lassie film.
What a comparison!
Oh, God.
Like a Lassie film.
And then another one, that woman is walking out naked to the trucker dude. As Tom trying to shut them out, Irene and the trucker finish up. Irene, completely naked, starts waxing philosophic about Valentine's Day and the Romans. Short version, the males were randomly assigned secret sex slaves for the next year by pulling the girl's name out of a hat. ... Or something like that.
I did not get that vibe from the story at all.
And then another great one. At the ending, Harry isn't there and Axel realizes he is there. Inside Tom. And we now see Tom digging up Harry's body and taking off the outfit after doing the killings and attacking Irene. And seeing Harry in the mirror. And in parentheses it says, make your inevitable Fight Club comparisons now.
Wow. Nobody's doing doing that. No
God.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the new Fight
Oh
Club.
my god. Also, yeah, like why is he wearing that outfit? It's probably rotten.
It
I don't-
doesn't. None of this makes any sense.
Yeah.
Not at all.
This
God.
like, I'm not surprised that fucking Stone Cold Steve Trucker is the one who wrote this movie because he looks like it.
Absolutely.
Should we fucking rate this garbage and
Yes.
move on?
Let's just go into it.
All I can say is it makes Saw look like a Lassie film.
I didn't know those. Yeah, that's the best way.
Yeah,
to
I'm gonna
describe
give it a 1.5. I've seen worse remakes, but man, oh man, was this convoluted and bad, and just kind of sleazy as a whole. Like the callbacks they had felt heavy-handed, and the 3D shots are super dated. There was some bad CGI, and just overall, not worth checking out.
Well, Ben, I think you're being generous. One pod, Eugene?
Well, I think I'm gonna have to give a one pod as well. Hey, as I said, the general public who don't really care about how effective a horror movie is, I'm sure that you could turn your brain off to this and just be like, oh, yeah, the fucking coal mines was cool. And for me, not worth it. Even when I thought that it would be something like Piranha 3D, where it sort of tries to play up,
Which is a much better film.
yes,
Yeah.
where the exaggeration of it is played to its strengths. This movie never hits any high points with its absurdity. So
It takes itself too seriously to be properly campy.
yes, yeah, that is the problem.
So that gives My Bloody Valentine 3D an average rating of 1.2 pods. Fuck this movie. Let's talk about something better.
Yes,
Yes.
and we have a great final film to discuss.
Could not agree more.
Yes, and this was my first time seeing it. I had never watched it before, only ever heard about it. The movie we are talking about is Misery, Stephen King's Misery.
Yes.
Rob Reiner's Stephen King's Misery.
Yes. Directed by Rob Reiner, came out in 1990, an adaptation of the acclaimed Stephen King novel, which I read in high school and really, really enjoyed. And I've seen this movie a couple of times, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, this movie's probably best known for Kathy Bates' breakout role in
Yes.
it. And honestly, one of the best parts of the movie.
Oh,
She is
absolutely.
fantastic.
She won an Oscar for this
Yes,
movie.
which is impressive because usually horror movies get snubbed at the Oscars.
yes, and
Well,
she
there
won
was a
Best
different
Leading
time for
Actress.
that.
Yeah.
This is still, I mean, it's by a bigger director. One of the reasons why Rob Reiner was chosen because he did the adaptation of Stand By Me.
Yeah.
And so that was enough for Stephen King to
Well,
let
that
him
was
try and adapt.
Stephen King actually refused to sell the film rights to this novel unless Rob Reiner would direct it.
Which, he's a great director. He's made a whole bunch of fantastic movies. Not
I-
even horror films. I mean, The Princess Bride, this is Spinal Tap. When Harry Met Sally, I think it's a good movie.
I love the shit out of Stand By Me. Like
yeah.
I can totally see why Stephen King wanted Rob Reiner to adapt this, and I think he did a great job. It's relatively faithful to the novel,
Yeah.
which I like a lot.
Well, it seems like the whole premise itself and the setting it takes place in, it seems like it's easy enough to translate into film.
Yes, it
It's
doesn't.
nothing
it
convoluted
doesn't-
like
yeah.
it or...
It's nothing crazy. So the basic premise is novelist Paul Sheldon, played by James Caan, is in a car accident in a blizzard in Colorado after finishing the first draft of his newest novel. And he is rescued by Annie Wilkes, who's played by Kathy Bates, who claims to be his number one fan. She is sort of nursing him back to health in her house, but he quickly realizes that she is incredibly mentally unstable and very overly attached to him. So this is I think a very suitable film for our Valentine's episode because
Absolutely.
this is a love hurts film for
Yes.
sure. So to give some context, he is primarily like a romance novel writer, sort of like a pulpy romance writer, that he's done this series based around this woman named Misery, who Kathy Bates really relates to. So at the point where he's in the accident, he has his new manuscript that he's just finished, but it's also at the same time the latest Misery book has just come out. So yeah, she's reading his new manuscript, which is a totally unrelated story. And yeah, she gets offended by the vulgarity in it.
All right, and that's when we start to see the cracks in her character, because first we see she's an obsessive fan. She's obviously infatuated by James Caan, but it's in that moment when she starts talking about the curse words and the obscenity, she starts to raise her voice, and just she got the crazy eyes. She starts to really show more of the menace that's hiding behind her.
Right. And at a certain point, she gets his new Misery novel. She loves it until she gets to the end when he kills off the Misery character, because he's trying to move on and pursue other artistic projects. He doesn't want to be...
He doesn't want to be the Misery guy.
He doesn't want to be the Misery guy. He doesn't want to be pigeonholed into these, like, pulpy romance novels.
Which I like that little setup. They begin after the car crash. They do a flashback of him talking to his agent about killing off Misery.
Who's played by Lauren Bacall.
Yes, that's right.
Rest in peace.
He mentions that killing off Misery, but then when he's in the house, it took me a second to make that connection. It's like, okay, she's a huge fan of him, but oh crap, she's about to find out that Misery was killed off, and that's really gonna put her over the edge. Yeah. And it does, because she goes into his room in the middle of the night in a rage and starts shaking his bed
and like
violently.
Smashing stuff. He's we didn't mention he's totally crippled. He was by the car accident. One of his arms is broken and both of his legs are broken.
Yes,
so
and
he's
a very gross detail we see.
Yeah, he's totally reliant on her, and she tells him she'll take him to the hospital like when the blizzard clears and the phone lines are back up or whatever. She'll get an ambulance out there. But she doesn't. She has kidnapped him. And when she discovers that he has killed off Misery, she forces him to burn his new manuscript, buys him a typewriter, and basically forces him to write a new Misery novel where he brings her back to life.
Yes.
And the thing I love about the storyline so much is it feels super self-reflexive with Stephen King. Because around the time, he was being pigeonholed as the horror guy.
Right.
He was the pulpy horror guy that put out a book or two a year. I feel like he wanted to branch out. I know he did those high fantasy books in the late 80s that didn't really do
high fantasy
super well.
With that stuff like Your Highness. And I think it also has a lot to do with his substance abuse at the time as well.
He has come out in recent years and said that Misery is about his struggle with substance abuse.
But I like that
Annie Wilkes is the personification of drugs.
Yeah.
Right. But I
also
do think
see
there's
it in
probably
a way as him looking at his fans.
I think so too. Well, he said that she's basically a complete amalgamation of like all of his crazy fans that he's ever met.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he attracts a lot of weirdos.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and the whole movie really is just set in this room that James Caan is bedridden. The only other story we get outside of it is this sheriff.
The elderly sheriff.
The elderly
Buster.
sheriff named Buster, who we learn when Lauren Bacall is trying to find out where James Caan went. He's like, yeah, I do fucking everything in this town. He's like the sheriff and
sleepy little Colorado mountain town.
Right. We see him trying to find out where he went. They discover his car in the snow, no body, and he feels something is up because either he escaped and died in the woods, but on the car door, we see it's been crowbarred open, which is how Annie Wilkes got to James Caan in the first place. And so he decides he's going to take it upon himself to solve this case.
Right. Everybody else assumes, which is, I guess, shitty police work on, like, the FBI's, part because Buster, this old like country bumpkin sheriff, is the only one who notices that the car door has been pried open from the outside. Everyone's like, oh yeah, he crawled out and he for sure like died in the woods in the blizzard. Like we'll probably find his body in the like first spring thaw or whatever. And Buster's like, well, no, because like somebody obviously pulled him out of here.
Yeah.
So
he is on the case.
For the most part, it's all central location in Annie's house, and more specifically in Paul Sheldon's room, where he's being held.
Great. There have been, as we mentioned, Don't Breathe succeeds in that same sort of concept, just one central location. Just last year, Split did the same thing as well.
What I like so much about the centralized location thing is that we don't see any of the rest of Annie's house until like she leaves to go to town one day, and James Caan like makes a lockpick out of a bobby pin and like breaks out to investigate the rest of the house and try to find a way to escape. So it's really like we don't know anything about what's happening other than what James Caan does, except of course for the stuff with Buster's investigation outside of everything. But in terms of Annie and where they're at and everything like that, we learn things at the same rate that James Caan does.
Right. And I
think it's really effective build-up.
I love in one of the first moments he tries to escape, Annie Wilkes has just discovered Misery was killed off. She tells him, I need to spend some time away from you. I love this in movies when a character has some sort of injury and they really play it up. I think that stuff is just super effective when they really drag out just how much pain they're going through. Because when he crawls out of the bed, he goes hands first and his legs slam down and he's sweating. He's got, the poop face going on. And
no, you hurt along with him.
You definitely feel it.
Right,
it's like they do an awesome job of like really putting you into his character, like you suffer with him.
Yeah, James Caan does an incredible job of making you feel how visceral his pain is.
Yes.
It builds up into, if anyone has heard about Misery,
everybody knows the one scene.
Yes, the one scene.
The hobbling scene.
Yeah. And oh man, I don't know if we want to get into that immediately right now, but
we can build into it. Eventually, Annie discovers that he has been leaving his room.
Oh, yes, because that's when we learn more about her character. We get little hints that there's something that happened in her past before. She mentions being on the witness stand.
And she mentions that she was married and that after her husband left her or whatever, that that's when she really fell in love with Paul Sheldon's books, because they were like her comfort. The Misery books were like her comfort. So she's sort of been vicariously falling in love with Paul all of these years, and now that she has him, she's really like becoming infatuated.
Right.
More so with just his books, but like with him as a person too.
They give her character heart. It's not just that she's a crazy deranged fan. You see that it's a sadness that makes her act this way.
You kind of feel sorry for her at times.
And she pulls out a gun at one point and she's like, I'm gonna fucking kill myself one of these days, basically. And she's not a good person for what she's doing, but you see that it comes from
she's legitimately like mentally unwell.
Yes.
And Kathy Bates does a great job of flip-flopping between that really really sweet, like caring, I don't want to say country bumpkin because she's really not, but kind of like simple, homely. Like she lives on a farm, she has her pig named Misery.
Yes,
she just spends, she likes laying in bed watching game shows, and she's just like an average person, and flip-flopping between that and this absolute like insane like rage beast that she becomes.
Because we learn that before the events of this movie that she was a nurse who murdered children. Is that right?
Infants, yeah.
Yes,
And
right.
I think it's implied that she murdered her husband as well.
Right. Because she has a whole clipbook of all these, as any good crazy person does, you know, a little.
I know. I
flip
love
book of
that.
their
She has a scrapbook, and on the front
what
it
does it
says
say?
it says Memory Lane. And he takes it at some point as flipping through it, and it's all like the news clippings of like her countless murders that she's done. You know,
Which I forgot how they explain why she isn't in jail at that point. That isn't terribly like that isn't important for how this
she
movie
managed to
plays
get
out.
off on a technicality or something. I think.
Something of that matter. She's Freddy Krueger who wasn't murdered after the whole thing, so she just gets to go on. During this whole thing, the way that the detective goes about his investigation is pretty ridiculous.
It is, but it's funny, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It's fun.
I think it makes sense for his character as this kind of like sheriff who doesn't really have anything to do because he's in this like little small mountain town.
Yeah. And there don't seem to be a lot of leads, and so it's just sort of like a hey, I'll do whatever to try and solve it.
Well, right. His wife asks at a certain point, like, he goes out and buys all of Paul Sheldon's Misery books. There's like 8 of them or something. And he's like, well, if I can't find the man, like, I want to find out, like, who he was by, like, reading what he wrote. So he starts reading, like, all of these super pulpy romance novels.
Yeah, it totally fits the sheriff who's never actually experienced any crime.
Right.
He's never sheriffed before.
Yeah.
It seems more like this investigation is sort of like a hobby for him more so than anything else.
Right, he says something that's like, well, if I can't figure out what happened to him, I can at least find out about him.
Right. And so he starts reading all of these Misery novels, and at one point he writes down a line from one of them because it like clicks. It's something like there's a higher justice than that of man, and I will answer to him, or something like that. And so he like reads that in one of the books and writes it down, and then later we see why he did that is because it made him remember something, and he goes back and looks at the news clippings from Annie's trial and sees that she quoted that Misery thing at her trial.
Okay.
And so that makes him think that puts her on his radar, I should say.
Which is all just because then that also means that these people in the town, because what also sparks it is that he sees her in town yelling at some dude, and so he's like, that people yelling at each other, that's suspicious. And so that's when he starts reading up about her as well. But at that point, that's when he starts to get clues on what exactly happened to James Caan's character.
Right.
And another, just in terms of convenience, how Annie Wilkes discovers that James Caan has been wandering around the house.
Rolling around the house.
Yeah, rolling around, that's right. He's got a wheelchair, so he can sit up and write at the typewriter Annie Wilkes gave him. But he drops a penguin, and he puts it up, and she comes into his room when she finds out, and she's like, my penguin always points, like, due south. And it's like, why? What?
Well, I mean, she's got this table full of these little ceramic figurines,
Right,
and they're all facing the exact same direction. I mean, it's incidental, I think, that it's due south. That just sort of goes into
And it was one of those, like,
kookiness.
one of those great conveniences, because she already mentions the flip book, and so she could have
Right.
just like noticed that was out of place. But yeah, that was just one of those, hey, he got caught. That's not really important, but what is important is what happens to him.
I felt like it added to the kookiness of her character.
Yeah.
That's true. Yep.
Very
No,
well.
it's like she's
And
so specific.
if
on
I
certain
recall,
things.
if I recall correctly, there's something similar in the novel.
Yeah,
like, about
okay.
that. That's how she catches him. Something like that. It's been a long time.
Yes, but because of his, she gives a great comparison to it about if a was it like a coal or like a miner tries to steal the diamonds rather than killing him because that's like
Then he can't work.
right. It's like trashing the Chevy when the brake lines don't, or something along those lines. Just a really cold, like, indirect statement on how you treat people. And she's like, well, they would hobble them. And so she puts the block between his legs, and they only show one foot getting hit, but it's more than enough.
Yeah,
that
she
visual
breaks
right there,
his ankles with a sledgehammer.
Because you see the swing and it hits. Ugh.
apparently Kathy Bates had a really, really hard time with that scene because of how violent it was. Apparently the entire build up to them filming that, she just like sat on the corner of the set crying for like an hour.
Holy shit.
Like, and it's visceral, it's nasty.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, because this is her at her coldest that we've seen in the movie.
and that is one of the things that they changed from the book, is she still hobbles him, but in the book she cuts off one of his feet with an axe.
It's crazy. That's
And so in this one she shatters both of his ankles with a sledgehammer.
And what makes it wilder is right after he does it, she proclaims, like, I love you so much.
Right. She's
Makes
the whole
it so much more twisted.
everything she's doing, it's like it's for his own good.
Right.
You know, she makes him burn the only copy of the manuscript of his new novel for his own good and stuff.
Yeah. She has a twisted sense of what's right. And that makes
Yeah.
it so much creepier.
Yeah.
You know? And this definitely is the most iconic scene of the movie. It's
Right.
the one that everyone always remembers. And I think that's
absolutely.
because it's so visceral.
Oh yeah.
And because Kathy Bates's character is played up in such a slow burn to that point,
Yeah.
that when it happens, it packs such a punch. That
Well,
it's
because
really
she
unforgettable.
doesn't do anything really violent to him throughout the movie at that point, at worst she's like slammed a book on his feet or shaken the bed, but nothing to physically handicap him.
Right.
Because, she's bottom of a wheelchair and stuff, so we're supposed to, we're seeing him that she's more of just a kidnapper, but now she's a torturer too.
Right.
So-
I really enjoy his plan to escape that he's building up that doesn't end up working out at all. He's been like not actually taking his pain pills and hiding them. He takes all the powder out of the capsules and he's gonna drug her while they're having dinner one night.
Right.
And all this buildup is really great. He finally, like, he's at the table, like, she's got the wine poured, and he's like, oh, if we're gonna do a toast right, like, we need some candles. So she gets up to leave, and he dumps it into her drink, and we're like, okay, this is finally gonna pay off. And then right as she's, like, striking the match to light the candle, she knocks over her wine.
Right, and you look at his face and he just
And it's
goes,
just like all of these days or maybe even weeks of planning and like working up to this moment to execute his plan, and just a total accident just makes it go out the window.
Right, and the fact that he was acting so nice and now he's like, oh crap.
That happens prior to the hobbling scene, correct?
I believe
So.
Yes. Yeah, it does.
Actually, I
Or
don't
maybe
remember
it's
because
not.
at that
It's-
point
it's on
that's
the-
when he finishes the.
It's on the completion of the new Misery book. So yeah,
Right.
maybe it is after the hobbling.
Yeah, we get a couple montages of him writing the book, and then also he's doing lift exercises
With the typewriter.
Trying to get swole.
Yeah, right, making sure he stays fit. And I forget, does the sheriff come in after he's already written the manuscript, or does the sheriff come in and then he finishes the manuscript?
Well, no, he's finished the manuscript and he burns it right in
Yes.
front of her,
Right,
and
yes.
she's freaking out, and so she's going to kill the two of them. Like she's got two bullets, one for him and one for her, and the sheriff shows up, and so she like puts him in the basement so the sheriff can like investigate the house. Right as the sheriff is getting ready to leave, he hears something in the basement, and it's like, oh, he goes down there, he sees James Caan, finally he's gonna be free, like something's going his way, like the sheriff has found him. And then he gets fucking shot from behind with a shotgun, just like absolutely cold wrecked. Oh no! I'm messing
Yeah,
up.
that's
I'm messing
before,
up the time.
and then he says,
He convinces
let me
her,
live so I can,
finish the book.
Oh,
The
that's
book.
right. Yes,
Yep.
yes.
That's
there
it.
we go.
I
Now
messed
we
up the
got it.
timeline. He convinces her to not kill him, so to wait until after he's finished the new Misery
the
book.
poisoning happens before the sheriff comes.
Right.
And then the sheriff shows up.
Right.
And then after that, we
That's
get
right. That's
the
right.
Final scene where he finally finishes the manuscript. He's finishing it, chapter by chapter, and Kathy Bates is reading it.
Yep.
And, like, anxiously wanting to know what happens next. And he's like, well, you'll see very soon. And he finally finishes the final chapter.
That's right.
And brings her in. He has, a routine once he finishes novels where he smokes a single
one
cigarette.
and has a single glass of Dom Perignon.
Dom Perignon.
And he says in the movie.
So
which is
that's
great.
right. He's like, oh, we'll go get another glass so we can toast together. And when she comes back with her glass, he sets the whole manuscript on fire.
We should mention, too, that when he was in the basement about to get shot, he snuck some lighter fluid
Oh,
in
yes,
his pants.
that's right.
That he
That's
dumps all over the manuscript. And as she's trying, on her hands and knees, trying to put out the fire, he smashes her over the head with the typewriter. And then they have a really visceral sort of fight, which is mostly them just rolling around on the ground,
Right,
like
yeah.
bashing each other.
Yeah.
Which culminates with, as she's about to kill him, she trips on something and falls and smashes her head on the typewriter.
Oh, yes, that's
And then
right.
falls on top of it.
Right, and falls
dies.
on top of it. And
Oh,
dies.
yeah.
What I like so much, what I'll mention about the camera work and what really helps make this movie really unsettling is there's so many like really tight close-ups, especially on Kathy Bates, and always kind of from below, so it's like she's looking down at you a little bit, and she's really imposing and just like
Right. Well, as I had mentioned while we were watching it, Kathy Bates is the only woman I can realistically believe picking up James Caan in the snow
Yeah,
and taking her
seriously.
back. 'cause
Right.
She's
Well, and that's like there are a shitload of both actors and actresses who were asked to play these two parts before they finally settled on Kathy Bates and James Caan. Some of the choices for actresses is like it just doesn't make any sense for the character. 'Cause like I mean in the book too, like Annie Wilkes is like a big, like, burly farm woman.
You need
know?
someone who's imposing.
You need
for
somebody
that
who's
character,
physically
absolutely.
imposing, and Kathy Bates has that, as well as the acting chops to really like flesh this character out. Like she's an imposing figure.
right. You couldn't have a Laura Flynn Boyle play this role,
right?
and
Like
make
like
it
you
anywhere
said,
believable.
Kathy Bates is one of the only actresses that I would buy like manhandling James Caan.
Right.
Because he's not a small dude, you know.
No,
like
no, he's not.
He's tall. Like he's not big, but he's tall. Like yeah, she just like throws him over her shoulder. Should we get into ratings?
I think
we've
so.
pretty
Yeah,
well-
because at this point, after he's killed Annie Wilkes, we get the epilogue. We
Yeah.
get a final scene of who he believes to be Annie Wilkes approaching him. It turns out to be a woman who just looks similar.
at a restaurant,
Yeah.
at
At a
a
restaurant,
waitress,
yep.
and she's like, "Oh, aren't you Paul Sheldon? I'm your number one fan."
Yes,
which is
right.
I think a great way to end
finish it and
yeah.
to also say it's like there are probably other people out there that love that.
And
Well, we should
he'll
mention-
never get away from the experience, even
His-
though Annie Wilkes is dead.
His
He's-
newest book isn't about the killing because Lauren Bacall, his agent, asks him if he wants to write a book about it.
Okay, right.
Yeah, like
right,
a
right.
nonfiction book, and he's like, I don't really know if I want to relive that experience. Which I thought was a great way to end it, you know?
Yeah, and then to have Kathy Bates approaching him, and then it's just another person. It's like he's gonna be living with that fear and living with
Right.
her for the rest
Which
of his life.
I'm glad it didn't do any Gerald's Game sort of thing for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, and then I created a support group for my fans, for people who have been hobbled. I've
Yeah.
gone to the diamond mines.
All right. Well, I'll start with this one. I think this is a great adaptation, faithful to the spirit of the book, even the few things it changes. Rob Reiner did awesome on Stand By Me, and he did awesome on this. And Kathy Bates is great, and James Caan is great. The build of tension is awesome. It's kind of a slow burn. There are a couple parts where it drags a little bit, but like it really works its way up to a very exciting finale. I'm a big fan of this movie. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 pods.
Well, Rob Reiner is definitely a hit or miss director nowadays.
Yes.
Back in the 80s and the 90s, he had a killer run, and this is yet another example of it.
Yeah, what has
Misery
he even directed
is
recently?
a great slow burn. It does not rely on any sort of jump scares. The gradual shift of Kathy Bates' character from humanistic fan to this monster
She's complex. She's a complex villain.
is a great growth over the movie, and really warrants, the stardom of Kathy Bates. And
Absolutely.
the breakout stardom.
Absolutely.
Of her in this role. I also love how, self-reflexive it feels. It feels like Stephen King kind of writing a fuck you to all his rabid fans in a way. And I really respect that a lot. It's a really solid movie. I would give it 4 out of 5 pods as well.
I think I'm on board with you guys all over there. I'm going to give it a 4.5, though, because not seeing this movie before, I was really surprised by the depth that they give Kathy Bates, how well-paced the movie is considering it's all just in one location. Never once during this movie did I feel bored. It moves along really well. Really great movie.
All right. Well, that gives Misery an average rating of 4.2 pods. I could not recommend this movie more. It's great. We do not have a game this week because we're just gonna go ahead and fucking put this Cloverfield business to rest.
Damn
finally,
right.
That we've been talking about for fucking weeks now. Now that Cloverfield Paradox has been released, we're putting it to bed. Next episode will be our Cloverfield special. We'll be talking about the original Cloverfield, Dan Trachtenberg's 10 Cloverfield Lane, and the Cloverfield Paradox. So no one picking movies this time.
Trying to stay as current as possible, even though by the time the episode's released, it'll probably be old news.
It'll be a little bit of old news, but it'll give everybody a chance to check the movie out.
Yeah, watch it before the episode.
Watch it before the episode.
So you can hear our commentary without it spoiling anything.
That's right. Well, I guess that about brings our Valentine's episode to a close. If you like the show, you can leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as well as anywhere else that you may find your podcasts. Follow the show on Twitter at PodPeoplePod and Facebook as well. You can follow my personal Twitter at Mr. Van Awesome if you give a shit about things that I like.
Don't go breaking my heart. Follow me at Mr. Sheets on Twitter.
Eugene, are you still juggling? Are you still a juggler for hire?
I had an issue. There was juggling unions. They didn't like that I wasn't a part of it.
The Jugglers Union. I forgot
Very
about.
territorial.
I forgot about
They
that.
are
That
incredibly-
prestigious organization.
I was at a birthday party and they crashed it. They beat me up in front of all the kids. I can't say whether I am still juggling or not, but I'll say if you go down to 72nd and Elmhurst, I'll be there. So,
All right.
juggling or otherwise.
I hope we don't have anybody in the Jugglers Union of America
Listening
who
to that,
listens
yeah,
to
right.
this show.
Nah, they don't know where I am in
The
Milwaukee.
Jua. The Jugglers Union of America.
The Jua. Yep. The show is produced by Ben and edited by me, and Ben is the artist behind our entrance and exit music. That's still a fucking wrestler thing that I don't know why I keep doing. Well, we hope you have just a fantastic Valentine's Day with your significant others. We will be spending time alone with our thoughts. Check back in a couple of weeks for fucking Cloverfield. I'm Matisse Van Rossum.
I'm Ben Sheets.
And I'm Eugene Lundeen. I hope you all have a fantastic romantic evening.
It is Valentimes!